Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking, and as always, I want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal, or Super Thanks. Thank you, friends, and have a blessed day. Today's video will be solely about the situation on the territory of Russia, especially that there is almost no action all along the front lines, with some occasional attacks near Orikhiv, but they are of very small scale. So let's move ourselves here near Lugansk Oblast and Rostov-on-Don. There was a video that surfaced online where allegedly Russians had struck Wagnerites' camp with rockets and even assault helicopters. In my opinion, that video is a false flag attack. It looks way too weird. Anyway, when that happened, Prigozhin had made several statements, and Wagner troops had started to move and actually occupy Rostov-on-Don. They did it peacefully. It would seem that no shots were fired. At first, there were reports of a firefight, but those reports were later disproven. It would seem that they didn't really occupy the whole city, mostly the administrative buildings and any buildings that have any administrative power, like police and military bases. Again, it was peaceful, there were no firefights, no deaths. So at this point in time, a lot of us received information about this situation and saw the video, but it was unclear what's happening. Because don't forget, this is Prigozhin. He's a con man. He's been tricking us all throughout his Bakhmut campaign. So now I will list several possibilities of what's happening. It is up to you to decide which of the possibilities is most likely. So the possibility number one, it is that Putin is on Prigozhin's side, because there were reports of their secret meeting where they made some sort of arrangements. That this is the way for Putin in Prigozhin to get rid of Shoigu and Gerasimov. So in a sense, Putin is using Prigozhin to do his dirty work. Certainly this is an interesting theory. A lot of people actually support that idea. Then there is a second one, and this theory works on the possibility of that arrangement between Putin and Prigozhin, if it ever happened, of course. But if it happened, perhaps Prigozhin was misled by Putin and were tricked by him as well. So he would make a move, and that was the way of legally remove Prigozhin from power, get rid of him, and get rid of his army as well. Because if you remember, Prigozhin was speaking out against Russian government, and if this theory is correct, he became too dangerous for the Russian government. Theory number three. There were no arrangement between Putin and Prigozhin. If you remember with the situation in Belgorod with all the incursions, Prigozhin tried to play a game with Kadyrov on who will defend this region, and it would seem that Prigozhin lost this game. Perhaps he felt uncomfortable and he felt that soon he will be get rid of, and this was his way of going all in. It seemed that he lost the big political game, and this is his last chance at, well, actually saving his life. What works for this theory is that immediately he stated that this is not war against Russian government, this is not war on Russians, and that this is no military coup whatsoever. This is a march of justice against corruption within Russian government and military to get rid and replace Shoigu and Gerasimov. In this theory, Prigozhin was hoping for the mass support of Russian people and army groups, and he thought that with their support they will be able to safely reach Moscow and demand for Shoigu and Gerasimov to leave their posts. This kind of premise is most prevalent on pro-Russian, pro-Wagner side of Telegram channels. And I have the last theory for you as well. This one, although at first was more prominent, but now less likely. And the theory goes something like this. If you saw the videos of how Wagnerites captured Rostov-on-Don, you saw that it was peaceful, almost theatrical. And that's why people thought that perhaps this was a con play by Prigozhin, that they will play a role of mutineers, will advance on M4 highway in the direction of Moscow, the capital, make it believe that this is a real coup, and then immediately turn around and go to the Belgorod Oblast and strike towards Kharkov. A lot of people at first thought that this is what's happening, but as more and more information is coming in, unfortunately it would seem that this was no con play by Prigozhin, and that we do have a real mutiny on our hands. So those were the four possibilities that I give you. If you have something to add, agree or disagree, please consider doing so in a comment section. I am interested in what you think about this situation. Again, at this point, to me at least, it is clear that this is a real mutiny, especially that Vladimir Putin recently addressed the nation, denounced the actions of Prigozhin and Wagner, called them traitors, and said that this will be stopped, and those who started the mutiny will be punished. So I guess Vladimir Putin just acknowledged the mutiny in Russia. So again, please go to the comment section and tell me what you think. There's also a video on my Telegram channel with his full speech that has subtitles, so feel free to pause right now and visit my Telegram channel and watch that video. Perhaps it will give you more insight on the situation. But now that I'm finished with talking about the possibilities of what's happening, let's talk about the current situation. It is well known that after capturing Rostov-on-Don, there were some negotiations that fell short, especially after Putin's speech. After that, Wagnerites started advancing along M40 highway, and as they advanced on this highway all the way to the city of Voronezh, it is being reported that they shut down at least 3 helicopters. For example, here's the video of the helicopter burning on the field. And here is the close-up photo of that. So it is a helicopter burning. Then there's also this video of a Russian transport plane being shot down by Wagnerites, falling to the ground. As reported, there were 3 souls on board, and they all lost their lives. As Wagnerites advanced through Voronezh, they needed to resupply, and they used a fuel depot that was located in this area. To stop Wagnerites from doing so, Russians striked that depot with their attack helicopter, destroying it.
Да. Ебать. Че это, нефтебаза? Пиздец. Жень, собираем манатки.
Это пипец. Летит очень низко. Только что был взрыв. Мама! Мама! Неосторожно! Мама! Пиздец, мама! Мамочки!
Currently, it is being reported that Wagnerites had passed through Voronezh and now are in the Lipetsk Oblast. So, right here. Next, there is Tulskaya Oblast, and finally, Moscow. It is being reported that the first fights had started between Russian troops and Wagnerites. It would seem that Prigozhin doubled down and are now marching on Moscow. If he is actually in Lipetsk, which a lot of reports are now claiming, then the plan with going to Belgorod is falling short. So that possibility is off the charts. As Wagnerites continued advancing along the M4 highway, Russians started to attack their columns with attack helicopters and warplanes, dropping FAB 500 bombs on them. A lot of resources are claiming that the fight is started, so it looks less and less like a gunplay and more like a actual mutiny. Before I sat down making this video, I forced myself to watch through a lot of pro-Ukrainian resources. Unfortunately, that made me extremely sad. It would seem that they are happy about what's happening in Russia, obviously. But there is one thing that I was able to point out from one certain channel, the name of which I will not tell. You will probably guess it. The claim was that because of the fact that Russian forces are mostly based in Ukraine, this coup d'etat could actually be more successful because Russians apparently doesn't have any troops in its mainland. Those commentators are forgetting the fact that Russia still have a massive police force, OMON and Spetsnaz. And from the latest reports that I've read about them, their numbers are in the million. So technically Russia does have all the capabilities necessary to stop Prigozhin. If you ask me what scenario is more probable, in my opinion it was the scenario number 3. That Prigozhin was losing a power struggle, a political game, and this was his last chance of achieving anything. He thought that Russian people and Russian army will join him. We shouldn't put that possibility off the table as of right now. It is still possible. A lot of people calling that this is the start of a civil war. However, I must disagree. At this point, it is still a coup. But when politicians and generals starts to take sides, that's when the civil war begins. As far as I know, none of the generals or politicians had taken Prigozhin's side. So at this point in time, Prigozhin is alone in this. And before this video ends, I want to say that I have a bias here, and this bias is Russian people. I don't care about Prigozhin, I don't care about Gerasimov or Shoigu. All I care about is Russian people, their happiness and well-being, and I believe that these actions are pushing Russia on the verge of collapse and civil war. And if what I am most afraid of will happen, civil war and collapse of Russia, Russian people will suffer immensely. So I denounce this action, and I don't support Prigozhin in this whatsoever. Once again, it's not like he doesn't have a honorable goal. His goal is to remove corrupt politicians and generals from the government and do everything in his power to win in this war. However, please don't forget, he is starting this coup in the midst of war. In 1917, Russia already had a revolution, military coup, executed by Russian generals against Russian Tsar. That revolution resulted in a fierce power struggle among multiple political parties. Then it resulted in civil war, mass immigration, and as a result of that, about 10 million people were neither killed in the civil war or immigrated from Russia to other nations. So no, I don't support any militaristic overthrow of the government. I only support change of government through peaceful process. Now Russian people and Russian army are faced with a choice whether they will stand behind their president or join Prigozhin. Whatever that choice will be, I will stand behind it no matter what. With this, I end today's video. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.